Yes, I've had a few drinks, hence the fact that I'm very relaxed right now, and it's time to finally talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's a tearjerker. Make sure you have tissues.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and welcome back to a non-spoiler review. It's been a while since I've done non-spoiler reviews for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is, of course, directed by James Gunn, and most likely his final directorial feature involving the Marvel Cinematic Universe that he has been heavily involved in since about 2015, I want to say, is when the first Guardians came out. This, of course, stars the talents of Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, the voice talents of Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel, Palm Clementine, Karen Gilliam, Chiwetel, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, sir, as the High Evolutionary, and Will Poulter, who is portraying Adam Warlock. This is non-spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry. This is just me giving my thoughts on the movie. I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Just overall what I thought about it being the third outing of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and also as technically the final outing of this iteration of the Guardians as well. Don't worry about spoilers. If you want me to do a spoiler review, let me know in the comments down below if you would like to see a spoiler review, and where I can go a little bit more in depth on some things about the movie that I liked, some things that I didn't like per se, but there's a lot of this movie that I really like. And yes, it is an emotional gut punch. So, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we see the Guardians are back together, being the Guardians of the Galaxy. This, of course, takes place after events of not only Avengers Endgame, but Thor Love and Thunder. We have a lot of different storylines that are getting wrapped up in this one. We also get a lot of Rocket's backstory involving his time and creation by the High Evolutionary, and overall with them really focusing on their found family and what the future holds for this found family as we have come to know and love over the course of their years within the MCU. I gotta say, the Guardians of the Galaxy was one of the first real oddball choices for Marvel in terms of when they were first really sort of venturing out from most of their more well-known properties. I mean, at that point, we already had our Avengers movie, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy were the first real ones that just kind of came out of the blue and completely took the MCU and the movie-going audience as a whole by storm. It became like, it still to this day ranks like in top 10s of most people's MCU rank lists. This movie has a lot to do. It not only focuses a lot on Rocket's backstory that we've never really had a chance to really kind of dive deep into, and how tragic and heartbreaking and how much pain he's gone through over the course of his lifespan, and really informs a lot of his actions when you look back at the time that we spent with Rocket throughout the entirety of his run in the MCU. It also introduces the High Evolutionary. When it comes to villains of the MCU, this guy really is a true 100% villain. No redeemable qualities whatsoever. And when you really think about a lot of the more modern takes of MCU villains that we've gotten over the last like 4 or 5 years, especially with people like Thanos and Killmonger and Wenwu from Shang-Chi, and even Kang the Conqueror to a certain extent, those villains had certain things about them that are topics of discussion when it comes to people within the fan base, and like, were they right? You kind of agree with them to a certain extent, albeit their actions are always wrapped in villainy. Their motives or their reasoning behind the things that they do are always brought up to a certain level of, well, I kind of get it, but, you know, yeah, what they're doing is bad, but I kind of agree with it, or, you know, one or the other. With the High Evolutionary, this was the first time, and I want to say the last few years, that I've really seen an MCU villain presented purely as a villain. Like, no justification, no qualms about this person is bad and you want to see them get their shit rocked. And that was one thing about this movie that really sold well, was like, this person truly made Rocket who he was in the worst possible way, while the Guardians and their found family are what brought Rocket's character to the point of being able to care about people again, because we get to see a lot of stuff in his backstory that would explain a lot of his earlier actions. And this movie also touches on the situation with Quill and our new version of Gamora, who was the one from 2014 that was brought back from the past to the future with Avengers Endgame. She stuck around after the snap happened, and so she's now in charge of the Ravagers, and Quill has to deal with the ramifications of his lost love and this version of his love. So there's a lot of things that Quill has to deal with. Everyone has their own sort of baggage to deal with through the movie, and the movie, I think, really touches on everything in a very poignant way, allowing a lot of these stories to culminate in a satisfying way, but also potentially leaving a future open for certain characters that we may or may not see down the road. This, of course, was directed by James Gunn. We all know James Gunn is now heading up DC Studios, so he won't really be working with the MCU moving forward. And this has always been sort of his goal in order to wrap up the story that he started with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. And I think the way that the movie was presented and the way that it was just done was really well done. I thought it was a beautiful way of resolving any lingering story plot lines with this group of Guardians of the Galaxy, and to provide a satisfying and fun conclusion to what we've gotten over the course of the 3 movies that we've seen the Guardians in. Everyone has a chance to shine and touch on their past, their present, and their potential future, and we get to really see them truly come together more so as a family even before when the movie started. I mean, they were already a unit, but they were always that sort of like loosely put together bickering family who never could really sit down and talk about their feelings. This movie really brought that to the forefront when everyone has to unite over a common goal. That's another thing with this movie compared to the first 2 movies. The stakes of the movie, albeit are super important for our characters, it is very much a smaller story compared to what we got in Guardians Volume 1 and Volume 2, where the fate of the universe was at stake. This was not about the universe, it was about their family. And of course Vin Diesel's in it, so apparently family is an important thing. This movie really touched on what made the Guardians of the Galaxy so special, what made them such a fan favorite in the eyes of fans. We've gotten to the point when it comes to movies and stories where they kind of just keep going, and this was one story that felt like it had a definitive conclusion. Again, there's a possibility that we might see certain characters pop up here and there, but for them as a team, as a unit, it is a conclusion. It is a finale. And that's something we don't really get much, especially with the MCU, because the MCU is just a living, breathing organism at this point, where character stories are continuing to go on and on. But this movie really served as the culmination and the definitive nail in the coffin for this unit, for this family. And if certain people will pop back up or not, it remains to be seen. But I like how the movie serves as a conclusion, but leaves the door open for more. But it is a conclusion, and I think that's wonderful. The action in the movie it's top notch with all of the Guardians movies, but this one probably has like one of my favorite action sequences in any of the Guardians movies. It's really towards the end of the movie, and it's a really dope sequence where everyone gets a chance to shine, and I really loved it and really enjoyed it. The comedy in the movie works. It actually doesn't become super overbearing, and it's actually really needed in this movie. I mean, Rocket's backstory is heartbreaking, it is emotional, and it is tragic. It's not really a spoiler, but this does kind of tie into his backstory. If you have issues when it comes to potentially seeing animal cruelty on screen, this might not be something you're going to rewatch more than once. It is kind of hard to watch in certain spots. I will warn you about that, but it serves a purpose to the story that's being told. It is not there just for shock value. It serves a major purpose in telling this story of Rocket and what he went through and where he is now and how he overcame that. So just fair warning, it's not a spoiler, but it is something you should know before going into it if you have issues with that. There were moments that I felt like I was prepared for. There were moments that I was like, well, I don't think this is going to happen at this point in the story, that still hit me in an emotional spot that I had tears coming down my cheek. It's very much a testament to how this random group of characters that no one gave a shit about 10 years ago have all of a sudden become super important for a lot of people and have found their way into being some of our most beloved characters in the MCU. You feel that emotional weight when the movie really plays with your expectations of, is this person going to survive, or is this where they exit off this mortal coil? And that's the one thing that I think this movie does a really good job of, is toying and playing with your expectations that you may or may not have going into the movie. And I think that's a wonderful experience to have. Never go in with expectations. That's the easiest thing I can say. It's a wonderful movie. It's a fun ride. It's a great conclusion to the story. Is it my favorite of the Guardians trilogy? We've had a few trilogies now in the MCU, and it's like that becomes a discussion of like which trilogy is higher. There's a discussion to be had there. I will say I still feel like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie is like the best one in terms of like overall, like my enjoyment level and stuff like that. This one is damn sure a close second, at least for right now. Just the emotional weight of the movie. The humor does work, and it serves a really good purpose because it breaks up some of the heavier stuff that happens in the movie. But I think we really get to see these characters at a point in their lives where you know they love each other, but it's still that weird, awkward feeling that they can't admit to it. And when they finally admit to it, it's such a wonderful moment. Again, I still think the first one is probably my favorite, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a fantastic conclusion to the Guardians story, to this version of the Guardians, and leaves stuff open for the future where we might see a different iteration of this team. But to conclude James Gunn's vision and his story, I think this was a wonderful way of ending it. If I had to give one potential knock on the movie, I would say just how Adam Warlock is handled. Definitely was initially when it was teased in Guardians Volume 2, you were expecting to have a much more prominent role. His role in this one is not necessarily as prominent, and some people might have issues with how they interpret the character. I didn't have an issue with it. I understand kind of what they were going with this character, but it's not necessarily a character directly pulled from the comic version of it. It's definitely some changes were made to the personality and the overarching demeanor of the character, which may or may not sit well with people. But to me, this movie wasn't the focus. The focus was on our core Guardians and wrapping up their story in a very deep bow in a very beautiful way. And I think the movie succeeds in that. So those are just my non-spoilery thoughts of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Let me know any thoughts that you have, hopefully non-spoiler, in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for checking out this and all my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to stream and going to drink more, so I'm very mellow for this, but I really appreciate you checking out this video. If you're new to the channel and this happens to be your first time, I welcome you to the channel. I do reviews and reactions, discussions, some gaming, some drinking. I just like to have fun. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And if you happen to enjoy it and you like hearing this sort of thing from a geeky bear like myself, subscribe to the channel. It really helped me out. I would greatly appreciate it. I love talking about geeky stuff. I love responding to comments, as long as you're being nice about the comments. I do enjoy that, so please subscribe. You can follow me on a lot of different social media platforms that are listed at the end of this video. If you want me to do a spoiler review for Guardians Volume 3 where I talk about more like the plot line and things like that, let me know those in the comments down below. I may get around to doing that. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, until next time, I'll catch you later. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.